So I want to welcome you guys back, man. I'm excited to be back. I'm excited to be healthy. Um, I'm just excited. I tried to record this video a few times. A couple times back in May when I fully healed, maybe a weekend or two ago, and it just, I don't know, just wasn't the right video. So here I am doing this again, and I'm going to be fully transparent. So, you know how we start off. I want to thank you for joining the Afterthought podcast with me, your host, Derek Daniels. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the feedback. I know the people who have been watching me probably have wondered what happened, where I've been, and we're going to talk about that today. So, long story short, and I'm going to go into details, but long story short, I was sick, and I almost died. Yeah, I almost died. So it was a serious matter. Last year, middle of August, I was heading to work and I just didn't feel well. I felt like I had almost like COVID symptoms, because I did have COVID before. So I felt like I was having COVID symptoms, slash flu symptoms, which my body was feeling very numb. Maybe not numb, but just really weak, really sore, for no reason. And this started happening like halfway through my day at work. I leave work, I come home Monday, leave work, and it's just getting worse. And I feel like, oh man, I possibly have COVID. So I didn't check right away to see if I had COVID or not, which I probably should have in hindsight. But it wasn't COVID, right? It wasn't COVID. But I should have checked to see if I had COVID. I stayed home Tuesday, and Tuesday I felt horrible. It was pretty bad Tuesday. The only thing I could do was drink water, and I had to force myself to do that. For anybody who's had COVID before, there are just different. It's weird because COVID hits you differently. Again, this wasn't COVID, but remember, this is what I'm thinking it is. So I'm thinking like, okay, COVID hits different for everybody. People have different symptoms, different after effects. So I'm just thinking like, all right, what's going on now? The last time I had COVID, I had lost taste, right, for a while. So stay home Tuesday. Wednesday comes around. I start to feel a little bit better. So now I'm thinking to myself, maybe this isn't COVID, right? Like maybe it was just, a quick bug. So I started feeling better Wednesday. I made a phone call to my doctor's office and was just like, hey, what do you think I should do? Here are my symptoms. And my doctors tell me like, the office tells me like, hey, maybe you should come in and get checked out. Like I think you should come in. And of course, me being me, right, I decided not to go because I'm feeling better. I don't feel like getting up and driving over there. I just don't want to do it. I'm feeling better. I'll be all right. I'll get through it. Thursday comes. And when I say I hit a wall, I hit a wall. Yeah, I hit a wall. I didn't think it could get any worse until Friday. Friday morning, I woke up and I couldn't move. I had been sleeping on and off all day Thursday. Didn't eat much. Couldn't move Friday. And I'm talking about, here's how bad I couldn't move. Next to my bed is my side table. My side table is the same level, same height as my mattress. So literally all I got to do is just reach over and grab my phone or whatever it is, right? Remote control, whatever it is. I hear my phone ringing. I can't physically pick up my arm to lift the phone or to even get to the phone. I knew something was wrong. I had friends knocking on my door. A friend of mine who's a coworker knocked on my door, and I couldn't get to the door. At the time, I was seeing somebody, and she came to help me. Like she just came to help, right? She was like, "Hey, I know you're not feeling well. Let me come and help. I can, make your food or, get you whatever I need." She's like, "Hey, let me come help." At first I was like, "No, I'm good." And she came. Friday night must have been the worst night in the world because there was no pain and I couldn't feel anything. Like I said before, I could barely move. The only time I remember moving is getting up to use the restroom because obviously I had to. I didn't want to soil myself and I didn't want to, shit in the bed, right? I realized, let's backtrack. Thursday, I spoke to my daughter before my body really started shutting down. And she was like, "Dad, I need you to go to the doctor because I'm worried about you." And I'm like, "All right, I'm going to go tomorrow. I promise you I'm going to go tomorrow." Couldn't get up Friday, so I ended up going Saturday. Saturday, it took me 4.5 to 5 hours just to get myself up, ready, and out the door to be able to be taken to the hospital. In that time, I knew something was seriously wrong. Still didn't know what, but I knew something was seriously wrong. I go to my doctor's office, which is Kaiser, and they have, like, anybody who's familiar with Kaiser, they have, it's one, everything is in one building. Thinking that I could just see my doctor, hopefully get some medication, they could figure out what's going on. If I got to stay overnight so they can do some tests, just want them to figure out what's going on. So when I get to the hospital, to Kaiser, the doctor's office, I'm lightheaded. I could barely walk. They pull me to the back and they immediately start doing tests, right? I didn't even sit down. Like when I walked in, they asked me for my name and they saw what was going on. And I didn't even sit down. They took me right to the back. So they're doing testing. They're trying to have me sit down. And I don't even know what to call it. I was seeing things. I was hearing things. I was extremely thirsty. I was hot. I couldn't sit down, but I wanted to sit down. There was so much going on, and I didn't realize what the hell it was, why this was happening, or what to even do. They immediately called an ambulance and took me to another hospital. In that ambulance, I passed out. When I get to the hospital, when I wake up in the hospital, I have a bunch of tubes. I got tubes everywhere. I had needles in me. I guess they were running a lot of tests to see what the heck was going on. I remember waking up enough for the doctor to come in and tell me that I had to be moved to another hospital because either the surgeon or the equipment that they needed to do surgery, which at this time I'm like, what the heck are we doing surgery for? Wasn't in that hospital. So they moved me to the University of Maryland, which is downtown Baltimore, and got into another ambulance and I passed out. I remember waking up in the third hospital, um, feeling like I was being cut by like a razor. Um, and I guess that was them putting needles, in my arm for IV and things of that nature. But I just remember feeling like I was being cut, like little gashes and cuts. I passed back out. They rushed me to the emergency room. I'm sorry, to the ER. And I don't know what's going on. I just know I got needles in my arm, tubes coming out of my nose, stuff on my chest. It's a lot of wiring on me. I felt like RoboCop almost. Get through the first surgery. Well, I get through the surgery, and when I come to in my room, um, the doctors come to check on me to see how I was doing. And mind you, I still don't know what the heck is going on. Like, I just don't know. I remember the doctor having a conversation with, it was either my mom, it was I don't, can't remember who was there, but I remember the doctor having a conversation and saying, had he had gotten to us an hour later, he would have been dead. So I'm on every drug possible. I don't know what they are. I'm not going to say every drug possible, but there are drugs that I'm on that are making me kind of go in and out. And then when your body goes through a major surgery, like, it just needs to rest, right? So along with the drugs and my body trying to, I guess, keep me right, like, I'm fading in and out. I wake up and I'm finally somewhat clear-headed, and the doctor tells me what has happened. So basically what has happened is I had a cyst that was in my behind to hip area. Nobody knew it was there. I didn't know it was there. The cyst burst, and the liquid or the stuff inside the cyst made its way up my hip area, up my back, and to my neck. The doctor again said to me, hey, had you not gotten here an hour, like within the next hour, you would have died, because that's how close the liquid had like spread. It was close to my brain. Once it got to the brain, there would have been no kind of surgery for them to do. Now, of course, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to like figure out, like, yo, was this a dream? Like, did all of this just happen in the past like 24 to 48 hours, right? Well, I think it might have been 24 hours. Did all of this just happen? And I'm looking around the room and I'm trying to make sure that things are real. I'm like grabbing onto the side of the bed. It's real, right? I'm touching the not the needles, but the tubes from the needles, and that's real. And I'm looking at my hands and I see needles, and this is real. This is real. I had to have 4 surgeries in 5 days so that they can remove, I don't know what you call it, that burst from a cyst, but whatever liquid it is, so that they can remove it. They literally had to cut and remove, like, remove a piece of me to get to whatever they had to get to, or whatever area they had to get to remove this liquid from out of me, to kind of drain the liquid out of me so that it wouldn't make its way to my brain. I remember after the first surgery waking up with a tube in my mouth. I remember trying to remove it myself when I woke up, because, again, when I woke up, I didn't feel like this was surreal. I didn't feel like it was real. It felt surreal. Going for the second surgery, same thing. I had the tube in my mouth. I just remember thinking to myself, like, what the hell is happening? Why is this happening? The scariest part for me in that whole situation, because let me step back a little bit. When you are in pain, and I was in a lot of pain. When you are in pain, all you want is for the pain to stop. So I didn't ask any questions, really. I mean, I really wasn't in a state of mind to ask any questions. But I just kind of let the team do what it is that they needed to do. What scared me the most was going into my third surgery and just feeling like, damn, I got to do this again. Mind you, I just did 2 in 2 days. I had to have 4 in 5 days. So this is day 3. I'm going into another surgery. Now I've been a little more, awake, a little more aware of what's been going on. And I'm like, damn, I got to go to surgery again. I know this isn't like I don't know if our bodies can handle, like, our bodies aren't built to handle that kind of stuff. So I remember going in and I had a tear coming down my eye, and the nurse that was in the operating room asked me, and these are the same people I've been seeing for the last 3 days, or they've been working on me for the last 3 days. She goes, honey, what's wrong? She was an older woman. She goes, honey, what's wrong? I remember saying to her that I don't remember the Lord's Prayer. Like, I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a complete blank. I've never been afraid of anything really in my life. There are some things that may be like, oh man, I don't, I may like have a little bit of fear to do this, and it's usually like what the outcome is going to be. But I was genuinely afraid because my thought is that if I die on this table, I want to be able to say the Lord's Prayer before I go. I know that sounds crazy, but that was my thought at the time, right? And I remember just not being able to start the prayer, not being able to remember a single word, a single line in that prayer. And before I knew it, they covered my face with the mask for the anesthesia. And I think I was out in like 8 or 9 seconds. Told me to count from 10. I might have been quicker than that, but they told me to count from 10 and I was out. I remember waking up and being just very, feeling very blessed that I was able to get through that without being able to remember the Lord's Prayer, and really feeling like I let him down, right? Like I let God down. I know that sounds crazy, but I felt like of all the times that I needed to say a prayer, it was that time, and I just couldn't, I couldn't get a word out. I couldn't get a word out. I didn't think that this would still bother me, and it doesn't bother me, but I thought this feeling was gone. Remind you, I've been trying to record this for the last few months, and I couldn't because I was just too emotional about it. I got a day off as far as no surgery. Had no appetite. Had lost crazy weight. Going into my 5th day for my 4th surgery, I don't remember going into the surgery, but I remember the aftermath. When I woke up, I thought I woke up after the surgery. It was bright white. And when I say white, I mean like white to the point where you're like, you know what I mean? Like it was just as bright as the sun, probably brighter. And I remember thinking, like, damn, this is it. Like, I've died. This is it. Not I don't know anyone that's gone through that experience where they've either died and came back or almost or felt like they died and came back. But that experience is a real experience. I remember thinking, remind you, it's just nothing but white around me. And I remember thinking, like, damn, I didn't get an opportunity to say goodbye to my children. Which now that I think about it, sounds kind of like, sounds crazy because who gets to say goodbye, right? Like, unless you know that death is coming, as far as like, you might, I don't even want to go into it, but there are times where people know that death is coming, and doctors will tell you, hey, start to get your affairs in order. But most people who pass away, it's not expected. So now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, who the hell do I think I am? But I didn't get to say goodbye to my children. I didn't even allow my daughter to come up to the hospital because I didn't want her to see me that way. I didn't want her to see her dad with tubes and needles hanging out of his arm. I didn't want her to see her dad, who has probably lost like 30, 40 pounds in the last 3 or 4 days because I haven't eaten. My son came up. My son came to the hospital. At the time, my son was 20. He's 21 now, but at the time he was 20. And he walked in and immediately busted out crying. And I knew at that point I couldn't have my daughter up there. If he's feeling that way, my son's not an emotional kid. Well, let me not say that. He can be somewhat emotional, but I just remember being surrounded by white, like white bright, just white bright. There was no floor, there was no ceiling, there was no walls, it was just white. And the only thing I could think about are my children. Feeling like I didn't get to teach my son everything I wanted to teach him. Feeling like I didn't get to see or show my daughter what a man is supposed to do for, our first date. I just... Here's what brought me back. A nurse kind of, I guess, like tried to like wake me up by like rubbing on my arm because she saw I was kind of moving around. And I felt like it was people like pulling me into the light almost, right? Like I felt like I was being pulled. So I started kind of fighting back, like pulling back the other way. And slowly but surely I started hearing the nurses like talk and, oh, sir, it'll be okay. It's going to be all right. And slowly but surely the white light kind of faded. It took some time, but it faded. I was in the hospital for 2.5 weeks recovering. I finally got to go home on September the 9th. And I didn't even get to go to my home. I went to my mom's home, which, shout out to you, Mom. I appreciate you because you didn't have to do that. They could have sent me to like a nursing home and I would have been there until I recovered. So shout out to you. I appreciate you. And I love you. I do. I love you very much. And I tell you that more now than I ever have because of what happened. So I thank you. It was great to be able to have the support system that I had, to have my mom around. I was fortunate enough that my mom has been working virtual for the last, before COVID. So my mom has been virtual for a while. So to have her at home to be able to like help me, take care of me, was fantastic. It sucked because I couldn't like bathe myself and all that. I mean, she didn't bathe me. I did like bird baths, but I wanted to take a shower. Mind you, I had been in the hospital for 2.5 weeks with no shower. I've washed up, but I didn't have a shower. The hardest part, the most difficult part about the recovery wasn't just the physical recovery. Now, granted, I couldn't walk for a few weeks. I had to build up the strength in my legs. Um, so I did different exercises, walked around the room, and finally got to the point where I could walk up and down the steps. But that was like a one-time a day thing. Like I would only do that once a day to be able to walk up and down the steps because it was that difficult to get up and down the steps. Things that we do daily, we take for granted, and I definitely took walking for granted. There's only so many shows you can watch, right? So much TV you can binge watch, so many movies you can watch, so many books you can read, so much you can write, so much you can play video games. Like there's so much you could be on your phone and watch TikTok or Instagram, or there's only talk to people. There's only so much of that you can do. So by month 2, I was going crazy. Remind you, I'm not in my space. I'm in my mother's space. And again, I'm so grateful to have that as an option. But it's still not my space. I am very, I don't know, like I like to not move around, but the stuff in my place, like I have it for a reason, right? Like I have, my gaming system, I have my computer, I have my camera, I have, like I'll do videos and I'll do, like I have my couch. Like there were things that I have in my place that's not, that is not, that I wasn't accessible to. I am very appreciative to have somebody, especially my mother, still around to be able to help and take care of me. But I was going crazy mentally, man. After month 2, I remember it. I was just like, what the hell is happening? Every day was the same. Wake up, take medication, wait for your body to heal, switch, possibly use the bathroom if I could, right? Every day was the same. Eat at the same times, take your medicine at the same times. Every day was the same. And I started going a little crazy a little bit. I was able to mentally get out of that due to friends, some coworkers, and just to be able to kind of make some things normal. So I was able to return back to my place in January. Was it January or February? It was one of those 2 months. I think it might have been February. I was able to return back to my place in February and have a nurse come to me to check the wound and clean the wound and that kind of stuff. May, what was it? April, end of April, beginning of May, my wound finally fully closed. And I was able to go back to work like May 16th, I think it was, of this year. If I'm going to be fully transparent, there were times in that hospital, man, I felt like, just take me, Lord. Like that's genuinely how I felt. That's genuinely how I felt. I'm glad he didn't. I wouldn't be able to be around my children, and I wouldn't be able to kind of live life different. This has definitely been a wake-up call for me. I'm taking better care of my health. I am spending more time with my children, laughing more, doing the things that make me happy and that I feel fulfilled in. I don't take work as serious as I used to. Not to say I don't do my job, but I know that this just isn't it. Like this isn't the end all be all. So I want to encourage you. I don't know how you communicate with your people you haven't spoken to in a minute. I don't know what your situation is. But I want to encourage you to reach out to whoever that person is. I don't know who they are, but I guarantee you know exactly who I'm talking about for you. Reach out and don't text. Pick up the phone, call, tell them how you feel. Tell them how you feel. You don't want it to be too late before you express how you feel to somebody. I encourage you to do that while they're still here. I know this episode was pretty heavy, um, and I don't want it to be heavy. Right? This is my story. I started this podcast as a diary just for myself. Like literally, it was just me recording um, my thoughts, my process, um, or my processes, however you want to say it. But this was just a way for me to kind of get things off my chest. For some people, they write. Writing doesn't really help me get things off my chest. I have to verbally say it. My goal after starting this and seeing the feedback now is to be as transparent as possible because it helps other people. I'm not the only one who's gone through this. I'm not the only one who's had an accident where they almost died. Um, again, my goal is to reach at least one person to be able to help them, or not even help them, but to let them know that you're not alone. I think there is power in knowing that you're not the only one who's been through this or something like this. No matter what piece on the board you are. Again, I went through it physically, and like I was the one in the middle of it, but my mom went through some stuff, right? Like I'm sure it scared the hell out of my mother. My kids went through stuff, like, right? There are other people surrounding me that it affected. The students I work with at work were affected. And not to say that they like felt bad about me or they felt, it was just like, yo, Mr. D, where you been at? Like, I needed you. So again, I share this story and I share my stories and my thoughts in hopes to kind of reach someone to let them know you're not alone. This is chapter 2. This is chapter 2. I think this is a hell of a way to start off. And I want to thank you again for joining me on the Afterthought podcast with me, your host, Derek Daniels. And I'll see you next week. Peace.